Welcome to the Church in the Wild podcast. You'll be hearing the words from worship from Sunday, May 10th, 2026, where we add Hildegard of Bingen to our list of wild saints. If you want to find out more about all of our wild saints and all of our upcoming events and programs, just go to churchinthewild.org. Thanks for listening.
The nature moment, which I am going to have with you, and it's kind of green actually, sunny and green. Today Cheryl is going to present for our wild spirit Hildegard of Bingen, known as Germany's greatest mystic and God's companion. Hildegard saw nature as a manifestation of the divine. It was in this divine healing power of nature and the transfer of energy from plants to humans that she saw as a principal means to embrace the greening power she called Viriditas. Viriditas. Thank you. The greening of things from within, similar to what we call photosynthesis. She saw there was a readiness in plants to receive the sun and to transform its light and warmth into energy and life, a relationship that needs cultivation in order to feed our spirits, minds, and bodies. I follow a site called Friends of the Forest, and the woman that writes these daily posts is called Katherine, and she writes about how the sun provides all living things with her extra light and warmth. While Viriditas, where greening is everywhere, it still requires effort to nurture our connection with it. The more our modern lives construct barriers between us and the natural world, the more we need to work to rebuild the connections. Luckily, we have one simple solution to help encourage greening: go outside. Once the sun and the earth kept strict time. The sun rose when she was meant to rise, traveled her arc across the sky, and set when the day's work was done. The earth turned beneath her, steady and obedient, and the hours were measured and fair. God bless you. Morning came, afternoon passed, evening arrived on schedule. There was no argument between them, no variation. The world knew what to expect. But the earth had children, green things, growing things, and they were never quite satisfied with the time they were given. In winter, they slept. In early spring, they woke tentatively, stretching pale shoots toward a sun that left too soon. By April, they were stronger, but they were still hungry, still reaching. They needed more warmth, more light. More hours to unfurl their leaves and deepen their roots and remember how to be alive. The sun saw this. She had always loved the growing things. She loved the way they turned their faces towards her, the way they drank her light and transformed it into green and blossom and fruit. She loved their stubbornness, their refusal to stay small. So in May, she made a choice. She began to linger. Not dramatically, not all at once, but day by day, she stayed a little longer in the sky. She stretched her arc wider, she climbed higher, and when evening came, when the world expected her to slip below the horizon and give the night its turn, she hesitated and she waited. By the middle of May, the change was undeniable. Sunset, which had come at 7, then half past, now slipped past 8 o'clock. The light that should have faded held on, soft and golden, spilling across fields and gardens and the tops of trees. The sky took longer to darken. The blue of day bled slowly into the violet of dusk, and dusk itself stretched long and generous, as if it had nowhere else to be. The children of the earth felt it first. The seedlings in the garden, the wildflowers in the meadow, the trees along the road, they lifted their leaves and drank the extra light like a gift. They grew faster in those long evenings than they had all the short days before. They thickened and deepened and bloomed. The world turned greener. The air smelled richer. Everything that had been tentative in April became certain in May. And it was not only the plants that noticed. People, too, felt the change. They finished their work and stepped outside to find the day still bright. They walked in gardens that should have been shadowed. They sat on porches and watched the sky slowly fade. And they felt something they had forgotten, that time could be generous. That the day did not have to end when they expected it to. That there were hours they had not planned for, light they had not counted on. Some said it was the tilt of the earth, the way the world leaned toward the sun in spring and summer. Others said it was simply the season, the way things had always been. But the old ones, the ones who still listened to the language of growth and light, said this: the sun lingers in May because she loves what is growing. She gives the world extra hours, light past 8 o'clock, warmth stretching into evening, so that everything reaching toward her has more time to become what it is meant to be. And in those long golden evenings, if you are paying attention, you can almost see it happening. The leaves unfurling, the buds thickening, the world drinking the light and turning it into life. That is why May evenings feel like a gift. That is why the light seems kinder, more patient, as if it knows you are not quite ready to let the day go. Because the sun, in her kindness, has decided to stay a little longer, and the world, in its hunger for growth, has learned to reach a little higher.
Amen. Hello, I'm Carol. Our poem today is I Thank You, God, for This Amazing Day by E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping, greenly spirits of trees, and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I, who have died, am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings, and of the gay, great happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the know of all nothing, human merely being doubt unimaginable, you. Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened.
Hi, my name is Deanna. Our wisdom today comes from Viriditas by Hildegard of Bingen. I am the one whose praise echoes on high. I adorn all the earth. I am the breeze that nurtures all things green. I encourage blossoms to flourish with ripening fruits. I am led by the Spirit to feed the purest streams. I am the rain coming from the dew that causes the grasses to laugh with the joy of life. I call forth tears. I am the yearning for good.
Hi, my name's Cheryl, and I'm here to nominate Hildegard of Bingen as a wild saint. If you, her name was floated by a couple of people last year, and so when the nominations came around this year, I thought of her again. And if you saw her name in the email and thought, why in the world are we nominating a German Benedictine abbess from 1,000 years ago, who's already recognized as a saint by the Roman Catholic Church? He's already told us some. But when you hear about her, I think you'll see that her ideas are quite contemporary, and she's actually a spiritual ancestor of us all. I would argue she was a woman way ahead of her time, and she helped pave our way to our current thinking about creation and justice issues, holistic healing, and even some feminist and queer issues. So while she was a Benedictine abbess, that's a leader of a group of nuns, if that's a word you're not familiar with, and she did live apart in a convent or nunnery, she didn't have a sheltered, cloistered, private piety like you might expect. She didn't meekly follow the church's or the culture's party line. She wrote to emperors, popes, and other leaders of her time, challenging them, warning them, urging them toward more justice. She was a Renaissance woman 200 years before the Renaissance, a writer, a poet, a composer of music, and a gifted plantswoman and healer. And at a time when the prevailing religious view was that mankind was created to dominate the earth, she described creation as an integrated whole, linking humans' nature and the greater cosmos in a living system of relationships. She saw the natural world as alive and infused with meaning, and said that all of creation is a song of praise, and all living creatures are sparks from the radiation of God's brilliance. And every creature is a glittering, glistening mirror of divinity. At a time when males were generally the only ones allowed to preach, she preached publicly to both clergy and laity, and often criticized corruption within the clergy. And at a time when only males were generally allowed to heal, at least among the religious people, she studied and documented the healing power of plants. And she's considered by many to be the founder of scientific natural history in Germany, and an early practitioner of holistic, naturopathic, and integrative medicine. And centuries later, early feminists pointed to her as an argument toward admitting women to medical school. In the male-dominated culture, she highlighted feminine aspects of God and feminine figures, virtues, and creative power. But what most draws me back to Hildegard time and again is her idea of greening. She coined that term Viriditas that we heard in our wisdom reading, and talked about what she called the greening power of God, that vitality that pushes a seed through soil, that heals the body, that renews the spirit. And she wrote, "There is a power that has been since all eternity, and that force and potential is green." Green, not the color alone, but a force, a power, a verb, a becoming, lushness, life, health, vibrancy. She called the earth our mother. She said the earth is mother of all that is natural, mother of all that is human. Last week, I happened upon a documentary that was just added to PBS streaming. It's called Wilding, and if you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend it. It documents the experience of Charlie Burrell and Isabella Tree. And at the age of 21, Charlie inherited the Knepp estate in Britain from his grandfather. And let's just stipulate right up front that owning a British estate is definitely a point of privilege. But it also can be a burden to the owners because they're extremely costly to maintain. And Charlie tried to make a go of farming, but the soil was so completely depleted by hundreds of years of farming that he couldn't make money even with the farm subsidies. And so they made a bold decision to let go of their farm and let the land go wild again. And they sold all their equipment and livestock and brought in some large herbivores and let them roam freely on the property. And I don't want to tell you the whole story, but suffice it to say that over the last 26 years, the property has rewilded. If I remember correctly, they did plant a few trees and they did bring in the large livestock, some cattle and some pigs and I think another thing, deer, I think. But they largely let it go by itself, and just the herbivores roaming the property and the seeds that came in, wild shrubs started coming up and other animals came. They just came, including some that had been almost extinct in Britain, and including their beloved turtle dove showed up. They did bring in themselves wild stork, and they were the first wild, maybe you call them semi-wild at first, but to breed in England in 600 years. And all kinds of plants and animals started moving in. And I'm going to end up telling you the whole story. I'll be brief. But one of the most amazing things was this one year, a whole bunch of this really noxious weed that's actually outlawed on farms in Britain took over a large field, and they thought this is the end of this experiment. You can't get rid of this stuff. That year, there was a huge migration from Africa of a certain butterfly that likes to eat that weed. And they ate it all, and it didn't come back. Nature is amazing. So if you don't have access to PBS, there are some clips on YouTube that you might want to look at. And she also wrote a book. The name of the property is NEPP, K-N-E-P-P. That's how you would find it, or just Wilding. But what surprised me the most, I mean, all that was really incredible. But what surprised me the most about it wasn't how the land is rewilding, with a little help from its friends. What surprised me was the criticism they got. They got all kinds of letters calling it an eyesore of noxious weeds and brambles, an affront to cultural values, and an immoral waste of land. That was the one that got me the most, an immoral waste of land. They started it and they sold their equipment and livestock in 2000, and it's been an ongoing project. So you might be wondering why I'm talking about that when I'm supposed to be talking about Hildegard. But I would argue that Hildegard was a spiritual ancestor to Charlie and Isabella and to us. I think of her as the founding mother in the Western world of the idea of sacredness and interconnectedness of nature, including us. I mean, of course, indigenous tribes everywhere never lost that connection, but Hildegard kept that stream of wisdom alive in the Christian tradition where it might have gotten lost, and continues to inspire people today, not only Christian, but pagan, New Age, and non-religious alike. And because of an ambiguous relationship she had with a particular woman and some of the imagery in her poetry and songs, she's also inspired several queer-leaning operas and plays. Hildegard reminds us that the sacred is not somewhere else, it's right here, in our breath, in the greening of the lawn and the trees, in the quiet insistence of life continuing, in the honoring of female as well as male images of the divine, and honoring of the earth as alive, in speaking and acting with courage and integrity, and in living in relationship with creation rather than domination. She reminds us that we're not separate from the rest of creation, that Viriditas, that greening force, moves through all things, including each one of us, and invites us to join forces with it. She may have lived long ago and used flowery religious language that seems alien to many of us, but her big ideas still guide us today. And for that reason, I nominate Hildegard of Bingen as a wild saint.
All in favor?
So I invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze or just look out at the green. And as you begin to settle your body, bring your attention to your breath. Quiet rhythm of the inhale and the exhale. If it helps, you might place a hand on your chest or your belly as a simple reminder, you are here. And bring to mind the idea of greening, not just as a color, but as a process, a slow, steady emergence. What Hildegard spoke of as Viriditas, the greening power of life itself. force that moves through soil, roots, bodies, breath. And without forcing anything, just see if you can sense that power of greening. Not as an idea, but as a possibility within yourself. Notice the solidity of your feet on the ground, your seat in the chair. And imagine gently that you're rooted, not stuck, but connected, like the roots of a tree, extending downward into soil, into darkness, into the unseen. And as you inhale, imagine that you draw up nourishment, steadiness, support, strength. And as you exhale, allow anything heavy to move downward, released, composted, returned to the earth. And with each breath, imagine a subtle greening, a vitality moving upward through you. Not dramatic, not forced, just a quiet aliveness. If there's tightness or resistance anywhere, try to just let it be. Greening does not demand perfection. It begins right where you are. And then gently invite in a different quality, like rain after a long season of drought. A gentle soaking rain, not to erase anything that's here, but to soften, to allow new growth. You don't have to force new growth. Life already knows how to grow. And now let your awareness expand beyond your body to sense the wider earth, soil, water, air, trees, unseen networks beneath the ground, animals seen and unseen. This living system is present with us. And we are part of it. Your breath is part of that exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, mediated through the air. And I invite you to reflect. Where in your life is greening already happening? Even in small, quiet ways. And where might you allow more space for greening? Not by pushing, but by softening and listening. As we prepare to wind up this time of meditation, I invite you to join me in this simple 3-line blessing. You might place a hand over your heart and let each line echo in your interior being. May I tend what is growing within me. May I honor the living world around me. May I participate in the greening of life. May it be so. And as you're ready, I invite you to take a fuller, deeper breath and slowly bring your attention back into the circle. If it's not already by the barking of the dog.
Be peace of running wave to you, and be peace of the flowing air to you. Be peace of the quiet earth to you. Be peace of the shining star to you. Be peace of the source of peace to you. Peace.
Shalom, shalom. Peace, 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 shalom, shalom.
Thanks for listening. If you want to support Church in the Wild and the work we do in striving for environmental and social justice, just head on over to our website, churchinthewild.org, and click the donate link at the top. There you can make a donation, set yourself up as a recurring supporter, or you can buy something from our Redbubble shop. We're so glad you're with us on this journey, following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. Until next time.